I thought particularly interesting because it's been about 60 years, almost 60 years since I went through that process. I forgot most of the information all over the too. There was a little more. There was a secret handshake, but I'm not sure I even remember what that secret handshake was. Did you all have a secret handshake?
Yeah.
Yeah? Yes. Roger Keitling was president of LEAC when I went through that. How many of you know Roger Keitling? You do, yeah. Roger is a pretty good fella. I think he and Chuck Ealer are kind of good friends in recent history. Anyway, I want to start out and call on Jim Miller to give us a little financial report and tell us how we're doing financially and what's going on. So, Jim.
We're still in the black.
Yay!
I've got the year end, which is as of June 30th report. We've got all of our different accounts there. Of course, the operations accounts what we do. The day-to-day stuff with the rental accounts what we pay Fry or whatever it is now, not Shilling. So
Yeah, just like interject there for just a moment, if y'all know or not, Shilling sold the property that we rent to a company called Fry. They're, I guess, a corporation kind of deal.
I heard from guys they bought like about 4 or 5 properties that Shilling had right there in that area. The management firm or whatever. I just send the check, same amount, $3,800 a month, but it goes to a different address.
Hopefully, I mean, at least it's good, if not better than Shilling was managing the property.
The escrow account, we maintain $3,800 in that, which is kind of like a month's worth of rent. Crowd change account is an account we set up. Basically, there's a debit card tied to that. So anytime Rick needs a little money for something or buy anything like that, we funnel money in and out of that account. Same way we got our PayPal money went into that account. But I have the girls at work say, I tell them whenever I put money in there, when it needs to be raised on the debit card, and as soon as the money, we maintain a little over $100 in there, so there's no fee for it, but I don't leave anything additionally in there, so we don't have to worry about any debit card fraud or anything on our money. The account at Petersburg is what Taj collects mainly for dues, and that's updated as of the 30th. He gave me that update. I think what you'll see in here, though, the PayPal money for today isn't in here because it was somewhere in cyberspace, but it is now in the account because it came to me. So, and our long-term assets, I got an update from Judy at AGR that our scholarship fund there is $55,337.70. Sean at SIU gave me the update there of $25,714.25. So our 2 scholarship funds have over $81,000 in them. We have total assets of $115. The only real liabilities we've got, other than finishing up some stuff for this weekend, is the first prizes on the last 2 Hawaiian raffles that people haven't been able to take at $3,000 apiece. So we're still showing that worth $109,000. Next page is our income statement. If you just want to look that over, I'm not going to go into everything on that, but the majority of the income is either from, you'll see the rent. The chapter's been pretty regular on getting me money. In fact, Jake stopped by and paid me the July rent in July when he was on his way to Taylor to over his working a summer job. He has to come by my house and get me money. And we have in there what Taj has collected for dues, what basically Rick has done through the Hawaiian raffle there, and the transfer that we did from the big thing, transfer to the Petersburg account, $17,000. That is money down below that actually went to, 4,000 of that went to Alfred Amarillo to get us up above 50,000. 13 of it went to SIU Foundation to get down above 25,000 to get those 2 endowed. So I don't know if later Ron, if you want to talk on the AGR, and Steve White wants to talk anything on the SIU Foundation, I'll just kind of leave that, let you take care of that. Just a few of the other things we got on there is just, one big one is Rick's story, get our website updated and everything like that. And other one's really small. We do have Fry properties in there, we paid them in June. Yeah, from now on, now we're paying them. So, and you see, we actually have net income, right, because of the money we raised through the news and everything like that. Too. So, and the chapter is current on there. Anyways, all right. Any questions?
Yeah, this is 17,000. Is that divisible by 100? So there's 170 of us contributing to the fund through cash, the volunteer dues. Do you know?
Most of them were on $100. There might be a few of them were a little bit more than that. Yeah, rough numbers, it's probably
It's an interesting point, Greg, you're right, there's about 117, somewhere in that neighborhood that do contribute out of, as I said earlier, roughly 1,000 members and 1,000 members of our alumni. Compared to national AGR, we, percentage-wise, are better than double national AGR's participation rate and contributors. 117 is only about 10%. We're somewhere in the neighborhood of 3 to 5 for national AGR. So we're good in that respect, but still, we have the potential to generate a lot of revenue for scholarships and houses.
Well, I think one thing probably on that point is, I think probably in the past we've raised more than that. Probably people give more than that because we had some time other than just saying it's membership dues where we're saying $100. And we had something where we said, okay, we're going to try to pay off this debt or we're doing something for scholarship. We have people that think it would be 500 or 1,000 or something like that. So I think if we have some type of goal or something like that, we might be able to up that number per person. I said it'd be nice to have a number of persons actually, or brothers actually participating.
Any other questions or comments for that? Okay, thank you very much. I'm delighted that we're in the black. I'd like to call on Steve now if you want to talk a little bit about our scholarship at SIU, our scholarship fund.
Okay. Well, as Jim mentioned, we've got $25,700 in there that's considered endowed. That way we will give at least $500 for a piece for the 2 scholarships that we give at the All-Ag Banquet for the outstanding sophomore and the outstanding junior. And we can start that fund, since it's endowed, will start growing through their investments at the foundation. I might point out, just because it's endowed now doesn't mean we can quit giving to it. There's a lot of options once we have more than the $25,000. If we want to help the chapter out by buying a new computer or helping to the library, anything that's educational, we can do that out of that fund. So there's some opportunities in the future. If we want to do things through that fund, we can. And I think we can with the SIU or the AGR Foundation account too. Anyway, I want to thank everybody for donating to that fund, and hopefully we'll continue to build that. So, any questions on that fund?
Okay. Thank you, Steve. A little bit about the AGR fund. These 2 funds do operate in, I guess I'd say, in parallel. The AGR fund, as mentioned, now has $55,337.70. I've asked Al Osterland, he is taking over oversight of our scholarship fund within AGR and stepping back from that. The goal accomplished from my perspective, so it's time for someone else to step in. But beginning 3/31/2021, we had what they call spendable funds, and that fund of $2,015, basically 4% is the way that works. fourth quarter edition for $528.96. We issued a scholarship of $1,000 for this last recipient, who was A.J. Shaw. And A.J. won that scholarship 2 years in a row, and that's something that we had not thought of in the past, and so we're going to look at that for the future. So right now, as of 6:30, we have $1,544.65, and I'm confident by next year in February, when we present the scholarships again, we will have over $2,000, so we'll be able, if we want to, give 2 scholarships, or give a scholarship and buy something like Steve mentioned for the house if we want to, or we can use that money to send our leadership team at the active chapter to leadership training or things of that nature. So this fund is very successful, but really, I really want to emphasize we do need to, I think, really keep building that fund for the future of Beta Alpha. As I said, Al Osterland has taken over now the committee for that, and he's submitted some suggestions for moving forward. And I want to share these with you at this point, just for you to give them some thought. And if you have ideas, please share them directly with Al. I personally think that some of his thoughts here are a little ambitious, because I don't think we want to make this too complicated either for us as a selection committee or for the people that want to, want to apply. But anyway, its criteria, he's outlined school performance, consider the GPA or rigors of their major. For community service volunteerism, the major would be consider the number of activities, hours committed per year, duration of involvement, extracurricular activities and work experience. The measurement would be consider the number of activities, hours committed per year, duration of involvement. Leadership roles, the measurement would be consider the number and relative importance of positions, awards, and recognition. Essay, they would actually continue to write an essay to look for strong educational motivation, mature and insightful self-assessment. The topics will change from year to year. And then, of course, what they would select for that would be whatever the committee decided from year to year. And then they would only be eligible to be a recipient of the scholarship once, which I think is a good change. As I said, last year was our second scholarship, and we hadn't really given a lot of thought to some getting 2 years in a row. But AJ was extraordinary in both years in the essay that he wrote. So there's what Al is thinking for the criteria for awarding a scholarship. Pretty complicated if you really carry it to the extreme. So I'll continue to work with Al, and any thoughts that any of you have would be certainly appreciated as we move forward. But I think this has been received really, really well. We've grown the scholarship very nicely moving forward. We have established with AGR a housing fund. I'm not sure if there's even any money been put in it yet. The notion of the housing fund would be moving forward to hopefully, potentially, buy, build, or whatever a house of our own and get out of the rental business. That's considerably downstream. We took a stab at that a few years ago, and for whatever reason, we didn't get that job done. But I think it was important to seriously consider our own house. There's a little bit difference in these two funds. The scholarship fund earns interest. It's really done well the past couple of years, like 7, 8, 10% of the fund that the AGR is invested in. And then we have a 4% that's spendable each year from that fund. So that is an ongoing thing. It's not guaranteed, but as long as the market continues in a relatively stable or moving manner, we'll have the 4% spendable. The housing fund, you do not get any return on that money. The purpose of the housing fund is really, in one sense, as a shelter. It is a 501c3 corporation. That's the only way you can contribute money and take the tax deduction on it. So it's really kind of directed to the people that want to make a fairly significant contribution. So for example, you could contribute $1,000, $10,000, $50,000, whatever to the housing fund at AGR. Would be spendable back to us whenever we wanted to build a house, do an addition, that sort of thing. But you do not receive any interest or any growth of that money. So the purpose of it is, the value of it is for the donor, if you follow that. So just for your information, so everybody knows how that works. Any questions on either of those funds or anything? Yes, sir.
Yeah, remind me again, we get different mailings throughout the year from the National giving to the Education Foundation.
Yes.
How do we designate, I mean, we just send that in and don't do anything, I assume that goes to the National Fund. How do we designate that it goes to Beta Alphas?
Right on the 4 line on your check, Beta Alpha.
That's all they need?
That's all you need to do.
Okay.
Judy, who Jim mentioned, Judy Schmucker, she's the financial person at AGR, and she gets every check that comes in, and she puts it where it needs to go. In addition, if you wanted to contribute to the housing fund, you can do exactly the same thing. AGR Foundation and the 4 line or whatever, you would put Beta Alpha housing fund or whatever. She picks those up. And so that's the way it works. It's pretty-
And also,
it's on operation.
on the website, you can contribute by credit card as well.
Credit card, debit card, they actually, you can indicate on their Beta Alpha.
Right.
Scholarship fund on that.
Or
on that too. Or either one, I'm saying. You can do that to make sure it doesn't go in the general AGR national fund that we get credit for.
Yeah, if you don't designate on there, it will just go into the general fund, and we will not.
As far as
It will not go into our. You got to designate on what's going, yes, sir.
Just for the benefit of the group, everybody knows that Ron has recently been named the National Securities Treasurer. So, and he knows what he speaks about here, so I just want to make sure everybody knows that he's taking on that volunteer responsibility. Really appreciate you doing that.
Thank you. Yeah, I go over there on a fairly regular basis. Along that line, the AGR fraternity and their foundation has just decided to sell their building that they've been in for 40 years. And they spent 40 years ago about $750,000, $800,000 buying the property and building the building. And they just sold it after 40 years for $320,000. A number of reasons. The building needs some substantial roof repairs, about 100 or maybe $200,000 of repairs to the roof. The building is not suitable for what the national offices are doing now. It was a building built to serve 40 years ago. Times and things change. So they've sold that building. They'll be moving out September, October timeframe, and presently are looking to kind of rent a temporary office, and then most of you aren't familiar with the Kansas City area, but there's an area called the Legends, which is actually in Kansas, and a lot of the agricultural activities are moving to this area, that area out there, including the Kansas City Royal, which everybody I'm sure is heard of the Kansas City Royal. It's a stock show and whatnot in the fall of the year. So the Royal is moving out there, and that's kind of the midterm, long-term goal is for AGR to get out there with a lot of other areas. Farmhouse, coincidentally, has also sold their building. They had a building that was fairly close to ours, and they have moved into a rental property in downtown Kansas City. So times change. That's about all you can say. So that's kind of our reports on our, yes, sir.
past few years, I've been going through our old house down at Southern.
Yeah.
Has anybody ever thought of the idea of going back, moving the boys back into it? I talked to the Dean of Student Affairs. They're very interested in having Greek Row reform. Haven't talked any finances with her. I went through it. The electrical in the house is good. We probably have to redo the floors, the ceiling, the roof probably needs to recoat, new windows, and probably get rid of the $40,000 worth of refrigerator, stoves, and everything that they just left behind. But it's a solid brick building. There's no structural cracks in it, and I know they want us back. Would we be interested in pursuing that? I'd be more than happy to re-talk to the university and so on and so forth.
Personally, I'm with you 100% personally. I've seen that idea floated. I talked a little bit with the active chapter, just kind of general terms. What would you think about that? Kind of ambivalent. Thoughts? I understand the basement's flooded. I don't know.
It's the drain that's out front of the old stairwell outside. I unclogged it, but it's probably clogged again.
Yeah.
That was back in May, I think I sent you the pictures.
Mm-hmm.
So,
First of all, I think there need to be some really serious negotiating with the university.
of course.
Some of you, Greg and Steve and Rick, I think have talked to university leadership as far as plans for the future for a Greek row, a Greek consortium of some sort or another. Personally, I'd start moving that direction tomorrow, but that's just one person. One, we don't have any money, so we need to do a major fund drive to raise the funds. So anyway, open that up to the floor for some thoughts.
I mean, the other
Probably
job,
everybody in here would want to do it.
I don't know.
I mean, if you want to pursue it, I'm more than happy to go down and start talking to the university, and then, if we get to a certain point where I need assistance, I'll get you guys involved.
Well, can we show of hands of who would even be interested?
Yeah, are we interested in that notion? Looks like we got a few that are. Rick, I see that sly little Hyatt smile on your face. Speak up. I know you've talked to university officials about the future of the Greek system.
I don't know that there is a plan.
There isn't. That's the problem.
Yeah, and from the last 5 years, they're still trying to figure out the leadership. And until we get some leadership strongly embedded with giving total direction, I think it remains a real question. But that doesn't mean that we can't pursue something that we feel is in our interest and that we can control and have. I think it's worth pursuing. I've been through some rehab and some buildings, and it's going to take a lot there, particularly to the way that the students live today.
Yes.
And the amenities that they desire today. You would need to redesign and re-engineer that building pretty good.
I was looking at that too.
I love the location.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, we were used to an actual house mom. It kind of kept us in line. Parents loved the idea of having an actual house mom, keep an eye on how we all turned out. But then also cook, that they don't have it, they haven't had for years either. So I'm not sure if the chapter themselves would be used to that kind of structure.
But first thing would be a 1 a.m. to 5 a.m. asbestos removal.
Is there asbestos in there?
Oh, yeah.
Because where at? Because I-
Probably in the tile, probably in the white tile, everywhere.
That's what they wrap the whole.
Right, I didn't know that it was all wrapped in, well, I couldn't see actually into the wall outside the electric, I did test it.
And you got it in that tile flooring.
All
The
the tile in that
floor is
area.
pretty much small anyhow, but so is the ceiling.
I'd like to make a comment on that. Some of us have been on Zoom calls with the new chancellor. Last year we got a new chancellor, Alton Lane. We brought that question up about the future of the Greek system. He is Greek, as is President Mahoney. They support the Greek system. We specifically asked the question, what do you see in the future for the Greek system? And Chancellor Lane says, I've got other fish to fry right now because he's got a lot of issues, but I think he will start looking at that. Some of us will pursue that discussion with him. Jennifer Jones Hall, the Dean of Students, we talked to her about that. In fact, when the AGR or Housing Trust Committee came out, that was a question she was asked. They looked at some opportunities to start some sorority houses out on the west campus. So I don't know where that is. We will continue to pursue that as to, what the Greek system will be like in the future. And I know Dr. Lane will address that at some point, but we'll keep that in front of him. Greg serves on the SIU Foundation. Greg and I both serve on the SIU Alumni Association, so we have opportunities to talk with the university administration. And we'll continue to talk, and we'll let them know that we are somewhat interested. And I know Austin Lane, the chancellor, made a comment that when he first got here, got to SIU, he went out to Greek Row and he thought it was a real shame that Greek system has fallen apart. And so I think he would like to see something done in the future. So we'll
I can't
just wait
believe
to
they
see.
abandoned that system. Greg, did you have some thoughts on this subject?
Not anything to add. I think we do have a positive influence. Roger Carr and I were just on the way up here. One of the things that we need to sell the Greek system, I think, again to SIU. And Roger was just making the observation, probably absolutely on target, that the Greek system of students probably excels in retention of students more than any other category of student that attends the university. So we ought to start thinking about the attributes of the Greek system so that it's plainly in view why restarting that and moving it to campus is the right strategic move for the university.
This is a point of interest, speaking at the Greek system. There's a move afoot, particularly in some of the eastern schools, to either eliminate the Greek system or integrate them so that there's males in the sororities and females in the fraternities and yada, yada, yada. So that's something in our current crazy society that's kicking around. It has had a little success, been an active group to block that and stop it. So far they've been successful. But that's something that's over here in the noise level to be aware of. I think, yes.
And I think, I'm Roger Carr, I was the advisor at Purdue for 3 years. And I think all these ideas are great, but I hate to tell you, the fraternity of AGR is much different today than it was back then. And I fought that system, and it's a whole different game. So I think, to relive what we went through, it's never gonna happen. Never gonna happen. I think the key thing is keeping a house, thriving to get the most talented kids in there, and so they regenerate talented kids, I think that's the key. If you have a bunch of deadbeats in there, they're just gonna recruit deadbeats, but our memories are gone. I mean, what we went through, it'll never be the same.
You're absolutely right. And that not only from what's going on today, but from dealing with AGR nationally.
Your idea is great, but now you got to recruit 30 more kids. Now you got to well, there's.
And then that house, as it would have to be configured, as Steve mentions, probably could not realistically accommodate more than 30 people.
Right.
There would have, it, in my mind, would have to be almost totally gutted. Individual rooms, it's a totally different animal than it was 30, 40, 50, 60. Yes, sir.
I guess I got a couple of questions. One, do the other chapters, like at the U of I, Iowa State, do they own their houses or are they held by a holding company? That in mind, if a holding company were to take over some of Greek Row and have an end date option for the house to move in, utilize it, there would be a certain amount of overhead initial costs. And to Roger's point, Where's the house stand now as far as number of members, and could it actually justify moving into the place once it's renovated? They're in Carrie's situation where if they don't have a decent house, something to attract people from other alternative places to live, they're not going to join the house. But at the same time, you know, are they prepared? Is it still strong enough to be able to financially move into it and maybe enter into a long-term lease with an option to own, that sort of thing?
To answer your first question, I think that the majority of the houses are owned by the alumni associations. That's my sense. Greg, you might have another thought on that, since it's something that we're not really aware of, but I think most of the alumni own them.
And their accounts are very huge.
Sorry?
Their accounts are very huge. They have a ton of money.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We're talking about some of the alumni associations, and they have some really big spenders. We're
Yeah.
still pretty young, you know. We're only 50 years old, and that's pretty young by some of these standards. Illinois, for example, they got a beautiful house. I don't know if maybe you've seen it, but Iowa, Ohio, so Missouri, I've been in there or seen theirs. So the first question is mostly alumni associations. Of course, we do the dealing with our landlord. So I think I don't know how many members do we have now. I think it's in the neighborhood of 20. The house can accommodate what, 12?
14 is the double.
Well, yeah, but that ain't gonna happen. So yeah, it can accommodate 14.
Yeah.
I think 12 is all I've ever seen.
Well, I think there was like 12 in the house, but we had that thing a couple of years ago on the campus. It was about 40 members all together.
Yeah, it's gone down. It's gone down a lot now.
I think it's in the
Yeah.
neighborhood of 20.
Yeah.
Big graduation from folks.
Yeah.
Yeah, they lost a bunch. And
Yeah.
they recruited 6 in the fall and lost 2 of them.
And the class before, they lost them all.
Yeah,
Where are they losing?
graduation.
They just-
2 that they lost pledged and then became members. I don't know if all of you know it or not. You become a member or a meeting,
Right.
Right.
and then you decide you don't like it. you quit.
Well, should I pursue it or should I wait
Okay,
until you guys get?
that's a question, and I'll put that question forth. Are we interested in pursuing the potential to reinvigorate 116 small group housing, or we want to just wait a while?
Just a little more discussion is that, you know, the chancellor brings up reviving the Greek system, and we don't want to be just the only fraternity at 116. I mean, you're literally an island unto yourself, and you're the only fraternity at the very back corner of
Well,
the
it's
university.
a great location.
Right, it is a good location, but, I mean, you're walking through a dozen empty buildings to get, so it doesn't do any good unless we work, you know, I don't know how other national fraternities and sororities are feeling about the houses they used to live in at SI. You know, so.
Isn't there one sorority still out there?
CKFs and the games are still
Yeah, but one thing to think about too is the university we were at.
But not on Greek
The
Road.
property has is open back. You could stand alone, you know, like
Sure.
that to the closest to unless you wanted. The other thought, main thing is to have an off campus, have a farm, you know, could have horses and everything, you know. But that one there could stand alone, you know. It'd be good if it was all Greek, but that could be the start, you know, just do the math, compare that to the other house and see, you know. But you gotta get like you said, the university things that they're not gonna control or thing. They have to have a solid, you know,
Well,
have to
that's,
their property.
yeah, that's one thing we want to
But
make damn
but the thing is, there's a lot of people really are probably good salespeople there, and if they put it to them and say, well, do it now, or, you know, offer them.
The state of Illinois and the university controls, I'd want ironclad agreements if I took that step. Because they're kind of like
Well, that's a good point, Ron, from when the AGR Housing Trust Committee was out there in that meeting. That was a question about if the university opened up a new Greek road, they were only talking about a 10-year lease.
Yeah.
Well, we're not interested in that.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not gonna go in and put money in whatever for 10 years without any guarantees that we can stay longer than that. But I think the bottom line is gonna be, the university has to make a decision on what they wanna do with the Greek system and with the current Greek row out there. Are they gonna raise the buildings? That's been talked about, to tear all those buildings down and start afresh with something else, or, so they've gotta make a decision what they're gonna do about that before we can go forward. We can make it known that we're interested, in which we'll continue.
That could be part of his discussion if he pursues this stuff.
Are they interested in turning over the property at an end time, or are they compelled by the state to maintain ownership?
We don't know that right now. I mean,
Because Dave and I talked about the idea of forming and this outside of here, but an investment trust, and actually rejuvenating Greek Row, and then entering into with alumni associations for long-term leases with the option to own. Kind of regenerate the whole thing at the same time, because I think, and back to an earlier point, if you don't have the whole Greek system involved, it's something that would feed upon itself. If you don't have that, if it's standalone, there again, you're less likely to be successful. But I didn't know if the association or the alumni association would be interested in a long-term lease with the option to own, if the university is capable of doing something like that.
Tom?
There's a lot of opportunities out there in kind of a quasi-public, private financing sector that used imaginatively could be brought home here to the university and maybe allow the university not to use so much of their own capital for something like this. But I think we have a willing member here of our group that's willing to move ahead, even without us having everything buttoned down. I think we need to give you a chance to try to see what we can do and at least understand it better than we understand it today.
And if they open it up, and they're gonna, the new dean and stuff decides they're gonna go forward, at least we're still sitting there poking in the side, we're interested, so.
Any other discussion of this topic?
All right, well then I'm gonna pursue forward with it.
Here's what I would like to do. I would like to see this as a formal motion coming out of the alumni that are here today, to entrust him to move forward with queries and whatnot, as we have discussed. Not specific, but I'd like to have a motion to that effect. So if someone would make that motion. Anybody?
I'll make that motion that Dave be the point person on this committee, and all correspondence back to and from should always go through him.
Okay. There is a motion on the floor now. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second the motion.
Got a second to it. Is there any further discussion? Okay, this is a motion. It's kind of nebulous, but
Give me permission to go ahead and pursue.
you're authorized to go ahead and pursue on our behalf possibilities of whatnot of reopening 116 small group housing as a fraternity for Alpha Gamma.
So Dave, I have a question. Would you give a cost estimate? Is that what we should expect as an outcome?
What I can do is, first, I want to get a hold of the university and see exactly where they're at with it. I had a conversation with the Dean of Student Affairs, and she was like all for it, but it was just the one dean. Then I went over to the house. The last 3 years, my daughter's been going down there, so I go over to the house, relive old memories. And I tested the electricity, tried to drain the water out of the basement, checked out, just general checking it out and what needs to be done. And then I posted pictures last spring, I think, of what I found in there. And it's a solid brick house building. I mean, when I hear they were going to buy property and build a new house for the guys, it's like, would it be cheaper? And it's just a question in my head, would it be cheaper just refurbish the house and get everybody into it? I mean, granted, the guys would want their own room. We could probably take the sleeping door and make rooms up there too. I don't know. But I wouldn't think it'd be that hard to refurbish the building. But the university's got to be in agreement with it, and we got to be in agreement with it, and the active members got to be in agreement with it. Now, I talked to the guys at the house, and the 8 guys I talked to, they were in favor of it. But then I started thinking, are they used to the structure? Do they know what we're talking about? House moms, cooks, and, you know, a regiment of way of doing things, because at the present time, they're cooking whenever they want, sleeping whenever they want, there's no rules, no regulations, so. But I want your guys' permission to go forward and see what just come out, what's gonna cost, is the school interested in it? And if they're interested in going with Greek Row, then I can be our little pit bull sitting there biting down their heels saying, we're interested, we want that house back.
One thing you have to remember, when we talk about the active chapter, they're there for 2, maybe 3 years. So whatever the standard is when you come to school, oh, well, that's the way it is. You know, and we each had our own experience over the years. And for most of us, it was a little different. Mine was different from yours was different from mine. And so their input is important. You need to know what the temperature is at a given time.
Right.
But next year, that'll be different. True. And next year, it'll be different. So their input is important, but I don't think it's the overriding factor. I think 50 years of experience, electric experience, you know, is what's important. Any other discussion? Okay, I'm going to call for the question. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, you're now the official spokesman, and I'd work closely with Steve here because I know he's talked to the folks a lot too. So.
You've been going around, you've been on way since I was vanquished.
Okay, excellent. I think it's great. As I said in the beginning, if I could wave my magic wand and make that happen tomorrow, I would. But it would take a major fund drive, and I'm talking a fund drive of at least a couple $1 million to move that off the top dead center. I think that was our mistake, if you will, in our first drive to buy a house. We need that fund drive, and we need those platelets before you ever put your foot in the water, seriously. So, I'd like now to ask Greg, if you don't know, we have finally, after some 3 years, got a dean of the School of Agriculture. And also, if you don't know, the School of Agriculture is now the School of Agriculture and life something or another. So that's changed a lot too. So I'd like to ask Greg, we finally got a dean after some 3 years. I'd like to ask Greg, he was on the search committee, to give us some impressions and thoughts about what we're on. So Greg?
Yeah, so I'm Greg Webb, 1979 graduate. As Ron was explaining, there was a search committee formed for the newly merged College of Agricultural, Life, and Business Sciences. So this is bringing two of the larger colleges together to be the largest college on the university.
About 600, 700 students?
No, it'll be more like 1,200.
1,200?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, 600 in the school.
Yeah. So, for the first time in several years, we actually had a national search for a permanent dean, which is, as Rick was pointing out earlier, we've had so many interims at SIU, at least 6 positions, including our own college, that you've got to start getting some certainty in there so that people have some confidence that, you know, there's a direction here. So, the search committee had 5 candidates that it considered, and unfortunately we were not able to attract either our number 1 nor our number 2 choice. But number 3 was a gentleman by the name of Eric Breivik. Dr. Breivik, it comes to SIU from Dickinson State in North Dakota. He was a soil science trained individual. He has a PhD in soil science from Iowa State. And then over the course of his career, he gravitated more to the geology side of the sciences. So I think from the committee's perspective, he has the right kind of makeup of both agriculture as well as the other sciences. So he's got a big job in front of him. This merger, I wouldn't say, I would characterize it as a shotgun wedding, that it was a coalition of interests to want to do it together. So I think he's got a really tall road to hoe. And so, you know, for all of us who are alumni, his success will be our success. So we've got to do everything we can as alumni to make this better for him. I've not spoken to Dr. Brevik myself, but there have been a lot of secondhand affirmations that he is a terrifically genuine individual, that he's held a lot of listening types of opportunities with a lot of different people wanting to get the lay of the land. And so there's a favorable impression, which is, the first impression needs to be favorable, and I'm glad for folks to affirm that. So Dr. Brevik started July the 1st, so we've brand new in the job. But I think, all of us, when we're there in February, it'll be a chance for the AGRs to demonstrate our support for him in that way. But generally speaking, I'm glad for us to have some permanence for a dean. And again, just to reemphasize, his success will be our success, so we need to do all that we can to make his tenure successful. That includes you as individuals. If you are a person that works for a company, bring the resources and that connection to them. One of the attributes, being a long-time alumni, you begin to understand what separates various groups from one another and sometimes universities from one another. And I think all of us can attest that hands-on experience, it was said earlier today, well said by our new inductee, hands-on experience. That is an attribute that SIU carries everywhere. And so I think that is something that we need to connect for folks more. That in this time of uncertainty where universities are considering whether you ought to go back to in-person or have maybe a consideration of online learning, not to be an old dinosaur, but I think that SIU needs to demonstrate its hands-on learning means you're in the classroom, because we're looking at you eyeball to eyeball and we're interested in your success as a student. So I think for us to have a similar messaging to give confidence to the university that they're doing the right things is also a need. Because most of you, it won't be a surprise that we have lost considerable student population over the last decade. This year is the first year that we actually stemmed that loss. So there's actually a very small gain, and so now we need to be working to where we accelerate that continued thing. And I often tell folks that, in a crisis situation, that's where you demonstrate where the wheat gets separated from the chaff. And I want SIU to use this time as a place to reassert itself so that the university that we all went to and loved and got a lot of benefit from is on the path back, rather than, is it in a spinning top and going into the abyss. So all of us, I think it's incumbent upon us to have those kinds of messages, that kind of an interaction with the university, so that they know alumni watching and caring about them.
Thank you. The university is a significantly different place. When I started there, the university population was about 14,000. It got up in the neighborhood of 23,000, and in the last couple of 3 years, it got down below 10,000. So it's a significantly different place. The School of Agriculture, when I was there was, I don't know, maybe a handful of women in it, and now I'd say it's probably, I don't know, maybe close to half.
Majority women.
Maybe majority, yeah, well, more than half. Our scholarship winners were both young ladies, and one of them was, I was so impressed with her, I would have said, hey, let's integrate the fraternity tomorrow. She's one of the sharpest young people I've met in a long time. And so it has changed significantly. Jim?
I might just add a little bit regarding the dean. I was at Belleville Research Center for the first, like about the 8th of July or whatever, and he was just his first week there on the job. He was there, he was meeting a lot of people. He seemed like he's really got a real interest in the agriculture part of it too. I was impressed. I met him, talked to him.
Did he feel for his interest in fraternities?
I didn't get into that much, but
Steve, I think you wanted to make some comments about the University School of Agriculture itself.
Yeah, there's things, just follow up a little bit from Greg. There are some good things happening there, and he probably knows as much or more than I do, but I just found out that Compere Financial just donated $150,000 to the College of Ag and Life and Physical Sciences to upgrade the beef center, renovate the beef center and the feed mill. And also they're putting a classroom out at the Beef Center, and there's a strategy behind that, because you put a classroom out there and you do remodeling and work like that, the university picks up the labor and the college flag doesn't have to do that, so that's a big cost saving. So that's one thing they're doing that's going to help recruit students and get things back like it should be. Also, you've seen where the College of Ag got some new farm equipment from John Deere, Nobby and Seidenstricker, leased cheaply, if I might point out, some new state-of-the-art equipment to be used out at the farms. A lot of people don't know, but that originated from a couple of our brothers who got that started. So anytime that, you have an opportunity to help the college, like Greg pointed out, we need to step up and do that. So there are some things that's happening down there. I might point out, coming up in September, is the September 18th football game. That's been designated as Ag Day. So if you want to go to Ag Day, there'll be a tailgate that's going on. I don't know all the details, but that should be coming out. So Ag Day will have the SIU football game on September the 18th.
Steve, I can remember the ag school director is, who has the name? We'll have a director from the school, right?
Yeah, didn't Ira get named the director?
Ira Altman is the director, but I think what I understand is that that's still a decision that Dr. Breivik, Dean Breivik, will make either to retain or look for another.
Yeah, I think he's still active.
He'll want his team, and maybe Ira's still that person.
Steve, you also forgot they also have a new hog center out there. They have a new hog center down there, SIU as well.
Yeah, that's, did somebody said that Mashoff was providing the fees?
Yeah, Sean.
When they were talking, they had one of the presentation there at Belleville was actually the guy who's in charge of the university farms. He mentioned about the beef center and about the horse center and various things about getting the new equipment. He said that they were redoing stuff at the swine center, and that Mashoffs were basically providing the feed for all the hogs now.
And I heard the college was going to go out and honor the Mashoff some way, have a little recognition for them.
By the way, just for my interest, they were talking about selling that, some of those farms, is that still going on? Or they're still going to keep the existing farms as they are?
Yes.
Because there was some talk about universities trying to make money off that. They're not going to do that. It's good.
I don't know if you're all aware or not, or some of you are, but farms got just pretty dilapidated, pretty bad. Some of the buildings. The greenhouse has been a controversy on campus for several years now. It's still unchanged. Maybe someday somebody will contribute $1 million to get that thing back in shape. So it's encouraging to hear some of these things that are happening. The storm that went through there 3 or 4 years ago did a lot of damage to buildings on the farms. For the most part, I don't think they were ever repaired. So it's been a pretty downhill slide for about the last, 10 years or maybe 5 years or so. So hopefully we've turned the corner and we're moving forward.
The only two farms out there that are really in bad shape is the old dairy center. That one pretty much dilapidated in the old cabin center across the street. Beef center, it looks the same as when we went to school there, but it's got a bunch of cattle over there, I'll tell you that much. And the hog center's next door to it, that's all shiny brand new. The horse center's beautiful. They got a beautiful horse center.
That's very encouraging.
And the aqua center is also, I've never saw that.
The what?
The aqua center. Aquaculture. If you go past our house, going out toward the farms, it's right at the corner. They got a big, huge, with all the indoor wells for all the fish. Yeah.
I guess I'm very optimistic because our new chancellor, when he went out to the farms, he couldn't believe that SIU had that many acres and the opportunities. And I think he's very forward thinking in terms of what agriculture can do for the university. And I think he's going to give us support as much as he can, because we have to keep in mind he's being pulled from a lot of different directions. But I think he will be sympathetic to continue to work with the college. And I can't say that about the provost, but I think the chancellor will, and work with the new dean.
I think that's great. It's all very encouraging. If you eat, you're involved in agriculture. So pretty big deal. Very big deal. Rick, did you have anything from the standpoint of our National Food Law Secretary that you wanted to share with us today?
Our national one.
Our Grand Secretary.
Oh.
Our Grand Food Law.
No, things going great. Glad to see everybody here. This is a beautiful venue and great people, and just thanks for putting it all together. We finally made it.
I want to say some really good words about our Grand Poobah. He's been, how long have you been the secretary?
I lost mine.
50 years, 40 years, I don't know. But he has done this job, and he's done a huge job in taking care of a lot of stuff for, I don't know, 30, 40 years, whatever time it's been. Rick, I want to thank you for the effort that you put in for the alumni and for the fraternity in general. So thank you. There will be a slight salary increase now.
Okay.
But you deserve everybody owes you a debt of gratitude.
Hey, Ron,
Just send those raffle tickets back.
the grandkids were disappointed Grandpa did not have raffle tickets to work on at their house this year because of COVID. They always help him sort and stuff the envelopes.
Yeah, it was always a family project.
Yeah.
How did it happen that he didn't have tickets to work on?
Well, because of COVID, things didn't go on schedule. Yeah.
You know, closely associated with thanks to Rick is thanks to Sue, because I know you've done a lot of work too, so thank you very much. I want to shift gears a little bit now, unless anybody's got anything else that specific they want to bring up in relation to our meeting and what we're talking about. I want to shift gears a little bit and just to the notion of getting alumni involvement, particularly with the recruiting process. I think that we're slipping in recruiting of top-notch young men at Beta Alpha, and I think for the most part we've relied on the guys there, just whatever they can snag either from home or whatever happens during rush week if they can snag somebody in. But I think we have an opportunity, and I say we, and I live in Kansas City. I'm totally removed from agriculture. I had through no choice of my own at the time, I had an Air Force career and never involved in agriculture, which certainly was not my life plan. But I always say life's what happens while we're making plans. So the Air Force took me away from all that. And so where we are is here we are. But all of the folks that live here in Illinois and scattered around, you have contact with parents, you have contact with teachers, you have contact with high schools and people in the school. You know the people in the community, and you know who the top-notch kids are, and that's who we need to recruit for Beta Alpha. And, you know, we've only got, 25 brothers here, but we've got 25 brothers here. If each one of you were able to recruit one top-notch kid a year, think what that would do for Beta Alpha. Either through their parents or through their school, through their ag teachers or whatever it might be. I think our fraternity right at the moment has drifted away from agriculture because we do accept, if you will, a related school. I think somebody said about half of the brothers now are not ag students. That's kind of an interesting concept to me. So I don't know where to go from there. But I would like to open this forum up for thoughts on how we might, one, get more alumni involvement and interest in our programs. I hope we don't have to go through a Beta Alpha 50 every year to get a few hundred or a couple of hundred, whatever people to come back. But that was a great deal. But you know, we talked about maybe trying to do something like that again in the not too distant future. Jim?
One of the things I'm interested about recruiting is I've got one of my customers at work. He's a brother. He's an AGR from Illinois State. he came and see me this spring, we were doing stuff, getting his line set up, and he said, hey, he said, there's a kid from Lincolnwood, he's going to Carbondale. He says, I know the kid. He said, I told him he needs to pledge AGR down there. So I said, we got people like that, hey, we're not going to Illinois State. He's a brother from Illinois State, but yet, if he's going to Carbondale, I told him to go see the people at the house. I think that's a good thing, too.
And you might even go so far as to get with mom and dad and hand carry him down there, if that's what it takes to build this fraternity. The farmhouse right now is kind of making us look bad. They recruited top FFA officers for their happy little group. We didn't. Those are the leaders. Those are the people that we need. I've talked with Greg a little bit about this, and I know he has some ideas. We've shared some thoughts, and I'm going to call on you again, Greg, to give me some of your thoughts on where we are right now. I don't think we're nearly as strong as we could be or should be. But Greg, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, recruitment, we all know we've been through it, we've been part of it. But I think one of the things that has been a frustration for me is that the National Fraternity has hired a company by the name of FIRE, P-H-I-R-E-D, and they are a professional recruitment company. And I've seen some of their work. I've been to a couple of recruitment schools here in the last 3 years, and it's excellent work. It lays a foundation so that, as Ron was just describing, we don't have to rely on who is our current active group and who might be their circle of friends, so that that's our realm of the pool. It really lays out, I think, a terrific program of being unemotional about recruitment, but it helps identify who are your pool of young men that you ought to be looking to attract to AGR. So I think one of the things we as an alumni could do is to, as Ron suggested, not only help with, hey, what role could we play in recruitment, but also encourage our brothers who have that collective role, not just to be in our recruitment, but the whole chapter, to say, what are the roles that you want to assign to us so that we can help you execute a predictable recruitment program every single year, so that we don't vacillate from 15 brothers in year 1 to 45 in year 6, and then we just go kind of between that. Our chapter at the national level is seen as a kind of an upper third, middle third kind of a chapter. We are viewed by the national fraternity in a very favorable light, but you're only as good as what you did last year. So it's always about what looks to the future. And so I think all of us, from a recruitment perspective, need to not only immerse ourselves in our own involvement, but I think encourage our brothers to use the apparatus that the national provides for them, because it could make life simpler. You know, the last 15 months have been erratic, chaotic, and so to some extent I have some empathy for our current chapter, because who would have anticipated that you would have just been locked down and things were that different. But coming out of that, we've got a lot of work to do now. 20 brothers, to me, feels a little bit alarming, because if we have a high proportion of transfer students, and I'm not sure what that makeup is, but in another year we could be down to 10 if we don't do a really good job of recruiting. And so that chapter's interest is our interest, obviously. So for all of us, I think we need to get more committed as recruiting assistants. We need to ask the chapter, what is it that we can do to help you, but also be mindful that there are programs that they should be utilizing, because we have an expectation for them to use them.
We're fired up that Greg mentioned is a great program. AJ Shaw went to that. I don't know who else did from Beta Alpha, but I know AJ Shaw participated. AJ, he's almost history. He's out of there. AJ was a pretty top-notch young man. He contributed a lot. Yes, sir.
Just listening to the scholarship program, you awarded to a sophomore or junior. And my thought is, why? Shouldn't we be recruiting freshmen? using that money to recruit freshmen coming into the program. And just, my mind ticks. And I think of the old, remember the old DeKalb Award? Okay, which is really gone now, okay? Could you imagine Southern Illinois, every FFA chapter, the bank would give out a Southern AGR award, okay? So now you assemble, that's the top kid in that chapter, the award. Now you have some kind of a big banquet setting that we recognize, here's these kids, here's our best ones, and guess what? That's where you're doing.
That's a good concept. Let me clarify just how those two scholarships work. The one that Steve was talking about comes through the SIU Foundation, and it is awarded to specific sophomore and junior, but not AGR, not farmhouse, whatever, whoever is selected to win that scholarship.
I thought it was an AGR, okay.
It is not. Ours, the one that comes from AGR, is awarded to a member of the fraternity at a given time. So they're just a little bit different, but ours goes directly to an AGR. And we could, what you suggest, offer the mechanics of it might be a little different. I mean, you can't really say to a kid, well, if you go to AGR and pledge, if you go to SIU and pledge AGR, I mean, it gets a little technical.
I think in Indiana, farmhouse and AGR, they give scholarships. You got to go to AGR farmhouse to get that scholarship.
As an incoming freshman.
You bet. You bet.
That's something we can certainly look at.
And it's under, that's alumni's names maybe too, I think maybe. I can't remember.
Well, I would challenge, I mean, each one of you, as you go back home, know 2, 3, 4, 5 brothers. Challenge them to what I'm challenging you today, to find a kid and recruit him to go to Beta Alpha at SIU.
And on the scholarship, kids hate writing.
Yes,
they hate it. I do Zoom meetings, stuff like that, and you'll get to know kids a lot better face to face, or Zoom, or I mean, piece of paper. That's pretty subjective to judge in the first place, you know. But I would do it face to face, and they'd appreciate that more.
Jim?
Another thing regarding scholarships, I've been on the committee the last few years for the Montgomery County Farm Bureau Foundation, and we give out, I think this past year, we were gonna have 6, and we actually gave out 8 $1,000 scholarships. But I've been on the committee where we did originally 3 for incoming, or 3 for freshmen, and 3 for the current college students or whatever. But I've been on that committee before and did things like that too.
Yeah, I was on the, as I know a couple other people here were, Greg and Tom were on the selection committee for the scholarships for SIU that we talked about. And nobody from Beta Alpha applied for them. That told me a story. I was very troubled by that. But I can tell you the ones that did apply, for the most part, they were unbelievable. They were top notch. Tom, would you agree with that?
I would agree with that.
Greg?
You just see the success just kind of almost drip off the page in terms of these being power candidates. And on a side note, kind of reading through the scholarship applications, you see some really high-powered, high-octane kids really succeeding, and you say to yourself, where are our own?
I think some of these kids were probably top performers when they were toddlers. They probably started walking when they were 5 months.
Yeah.
I was blown away, yes, sir.
I'd like to address Roger's comment a little bit. The SIU Alumni Association, which I'm on the scholarship committee. We, I guess, go through the applicants and select incoming freshmen for scholarships that are identified. Like individuals will donate so much money, endow a scholarship at the foundation, and they can specify we want it for the top ag student coming out of Randolph County. So you can do things like that. So identify you know, scholarships for certain areas, for certain schools that you can, you know, select individuals. So that option
Can we
is there.
stipulate that they have to pledge AGR?
But I don't know about that. That's restricted.
That's what I would like to do. I would like to spend AGR money on AGR students.
I think you can do it.
Sir?
Not me, I don't know.
My name's Joe Evener. I am a relatively new alumni. I graduated in 2017. I was the Noble Ruler in 2016. And I'd say this is kind of a trend that's been happening since I joined. I joined in the fall of 15, and at the end of my new guy semester, I was elected Noble Ruler. I was a transfer student, so I was a junior when I joined the fraternity, but I mean, at the time, I thought there were guys that were going to be seniors that had been in 3 years that should have done it, and they just didn't. And I think at the time, there was more priority put in going out and drinking and having a good time than necessarily growing as a person. I think maybe a silver lining with COVID and having small numbers is it's a little easier to hit that reset button and kind of change some of those habits that have been trending that way for 5-10 years. I think if we want to recruit quality young men on campus, you know, we can give them a speech, but when they get down there and they see that, you know, this group of guys, all they want to do is go drink at the bar, they're not going to want to go. So I think what I would suggest, or maybe what might work better is, and kind of on a similar vein, if you don't know, right now, there's a young lady named Miriam Meyer that's a national FFA officer from Illinois that did a year at SIU Carpet. So if you're talking about influencing a bunch of high school students, I wouldn't be surprised if we have a lot of quality individuals going to the university in a couple of years, because they're going to see, there's a national FFA officer that's going to little old SIU Carpet. So Miriam's giving the university a ton of free press just by being a national officer. But I think if we only have 10, 11, 12 active members that are in the college bag, and there's leadership events put on by National AGR, maybe we flip the bill for those 12 kids from the college bag to go to those leadership events. Or foot the bill of those that want to go. And kind of straighten out the ones we've got. And hopefully, you know, that starts to attract those high quality individuals on campus.
It's a great idea, and we can do that through our scholarship fund. You're a great example of what needs to happen when guys graduate. You're an active or whatever, an undergraduate, for 2-3 years, you're an alum for the rest of your life. And I'm delighted to have you here, and I wish we had 20 more just like you here. Great comments. And influence, you know, is the name of the game. Influence. How you influence these young men, these top-notch young people to come to one, SIU, but more importantly, from our perspective, to come to Beta Alpha. Remember, the motto is to build better men. And that's what it's all about. We're not really doing this to have a great social life and go drink beer. We want to build better men that are leaders and stand out in the community, that wherever they're at, whether they're in industry or whether they're in the Air Force or whether they're whatever. That's what we want to do. We want to build better men. We want to build leaders. So that's pretty much, it's getting close to noon. I think we've had a great discussion, but I do challenge you to try to influence good kids to go pledge Beta Alpha. And your friends, your circle, get them involved also. And make it happen. Yes.
Just a quick note, I feel bad that I'm saying this right after your thing about partying and stuff. But September 4th, up north, we have a big, huge party. Right now, we have 20 AGR members already signed up to come. It's at my house. Everybody's welcome. Just let me know so my wife can put another blob of pork in the cooker so we can make pulled pork. We're gonna have pulled pork, coleslaw, potato salad, deviled eggs, beer, pop. And it's on September 4th, which is Labor Day weekend. So if you're up northern Illinois, come on by. It's 2190 Wheeler Road, Cherry Valley, Illinois. Dave St. Germain, just let us know so we've got enough food.
What's it called?
St. Fest. A lot of you guys have been, a bunch of you guys have been there. Luckily, Mrs. Neepert gave me the numbers and where we're at because my wife's been talking to her. So it's a good time.
Nothing wrong with having a good party as long as you keep the perspective. Any other party comments or thoughts, Rick?
Two things real quick. So, in case you haven't heard, Bill Hobner's turning 65. Many of you know Bill Hobner. We are going to have a Zoom birthday call to him at 7 p.m. tonight to wish him a happy birthday. So just be prepared and we'll all get together in front of the Zoom again and wish him a happy birthday.
We'll start at 10 o'clock.
Yeah, we'll do it. Yeah. Let's get him before he's too drunk. And then one more thing. If anyone is interested, at about 2 o'clock or so, I'm going to be over here and I would be happy to show the website, answer questions, take criticism, take comments, anything. If you want to learn more about the website, 2 o'clock today, I'll come over here and we can just have an open discussion.
That'd be a great idea for all of us to participate in that. Absolutely. Yes, sir. Rick.
To tag on to that, Greg mentioned and you mentioned where we stand with the rest of the AGR chapters, but what Rick has taken us through and to today, this website, our communication ability is phenomenal. I mean, we just can't thank him enough. But the point I want to make is with all that he's doing, these 900 members that you mentioned, if you go and look at when he puts out an email or the newsletter, he has been spot on. The first day of every month, that newsletter is there. We're getting less than 50% hit. And so the tools are there to communicate to Aruba, wherever the hell we are, and it's all there, but we're not doing it. So this discussion that we just had is kind of like talking to the choir, but when we get together for the barbecue, we need to kind of encourage those that are there to reach out a little bit more. Those are our opportunities of how we're going to turn this fraternity around. I can't believe that as simple as everybody's got internet and email communications today, that we're getting that kind of response out of this website that Rick has created and put out there. And it's a tool that surpasses anything I've seen in any group I'm associated with. And we got to start using it. We got to start telling the story. I think it starts there a little bit. Those numbers are disappointing. But
I know.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome, man. Thank you. Thank you. Wow.
No doubt about it, it is fantastic. I appreciate everybody's comments, inputs, thoughts. Jim?
One other question I got, what about next year's Founders? Is that for us to plan or for the 10, 20 guys in the house to plan? I mean, I know the last time we had it was a big deal. Last year was COVID, so now we're back to hopefully more normal next February, but is it our gathering or is it their party? That's my comment, so that's.
I think it's ours in large part, working with them. I mean, but we work with them.
So I mean, I should be looking all the time, but somebody be planning that.
Yep. You're in charge.
Hey, you want an extra day? You want to do a Friday wine tour? I'll do that.
Yeah, let's do it. The wine tour was pretty good.
Yeah.
Again, appreciate everybody's comments, thoughts. I hope you, when you go home, I hope you think a little bit about what we've talked about. Dale Latz has got a cane. I know what he's going to do with it. Maybe get
a trivia question. So you can answer this. I've got a cane that has AGR burned into it. Does anybody know? I grabbed this out of the garage when I left this morning. Does anybody know where this? How I was one of many that got that? it's gonna be the older guys. I think I'm about fourth or fifth. I'm the oldest on the list here.
Before
Rick,
the
you have
hat.
any idea?
I have one too.
You got one?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't
Well,
remember.
This came from back in the day. There used to be an international livestock exposition at the Chicago Stockyards. When we had Chicago Stockyards, there was now right more Chicago Stockyards. But there used to be, I think it was the winter time, there used to be an AGR gathering. Yep. Active Brothers and alumni. And the chapter, I think this was an Illinois thing, I believe. It may have been more than that, but the chapter that brought the most active brothers to that reception or whatever, we each got a cane. And I think we did that one year, and we obviously won. I was one of the ones that were up there. I think we had over 20 or so active members that went to that gathering. Some of you guys, I don't think we went every year, but I don't know if that rings calls a bell at all or not. So this probably would have been, I would say, probably around 1973-ish, give or take a year or so. So fortunately, I don't have to use it. It didn't come with this. This one kind of had it later on. I used this when I had a broken leg or something like that. But anyway, just a little bit of trivia. I use it now to pull down the ladder that goes up in the attic. I still use it for whatever reason.
Thank you, one and all, for your attendance, for your attention, for your comments, for your thoughts, and with that, I declare the official meeting officially adjourned.
Announcements. Okay. I'll ask right now, do we want to eat in about a half an hour since we just ate breakfast not too long ago? And if that's what we want to do, we will have the hay racks in the shade, so the seats are staying nice and cool, hopefully, so that we can go back and look at the CRP acreage, which is in full bloom right now because we had 10 to 14 inches of rain the last couple of weeks, so it's looking pretty good. You'll see the difference between what a good hot fire does for CRP acreage and what a year skip does. It doesn't take long for trees to start to infiltrate. And then also, the corn crib is open. I don't know if all of you have been back there yet, but there's upstairs seating area that used to be the grain bins for soybeans. We still have the RV open. It's unlocked. It's air conditioned. If anybody feels hot, needs a breather, you're welcome to go in there. There's seat chairs in there, opened up and everything. That's all been converted. There's no bed in there, so nobody's going to spend the night there. But it's for the brides and bridesmaids to get ready when we have an event here for a wedding. We will open the big door, a little bit more breeze will get in here then. And so I just wanted to let you know a little history on the farm. My parents bought the farm in 1959. The original barn here was attached to the back barn that you see here that we use for storage now. It burned down in 52, so this barn was built with timber that was harvested off this farm. So these are one-piece 8x8s that go clear to the ceiling. There's about 12 of them in here. After lunch, we'll do the CRP tour. But this barn has seen hogs, dairy cattle, beef cattle, horses, chickens.
Now a bunch of AGRs.
About 900 rabbits at one time. Because when we didn't have hogs, we still had the farrowing crates here along the south wall. We, of course, got rabbits for Easter one year. We thought it'd be cool to kind of raise some rabbits. Well, we started putting them in the farrowing crates when we got up to about 2 dozen rabbits and didn't realize that they'd chew through the wood and they'd all get intermingled and breed. So next thing you know, we were in the rabbit business, selling rabbits for a while. So we'll have, if you've ever been on the Facebook page, you'll see some of the old pictures of the barn where this was a feedlot. Down below here on the north was a feedlot. So 240 acres. It was originally 320. Some acreage has been sold off, mostly the bottom hillside that came by with the 3 houses. And so we'll take that tour a little bit later on the tractor and hay rack. But yeah, so we'll start getting lunch ready. We'll be ready in about 20 minutes, 30 minutes. The bar will be open later. My wife brought her margarita machine. Anybody who wants margaritas later on in the afternoon? I think we're going to put Dave St. Germain in charge of mixing margaritas because he did pretty good at the Steak Fest last year. So those will be available. If you have any questions, if you see a full garbage can needs emptied, flag me down. My 2 sisters are helping my wife. and my brother are hopping in. Walking in the door right now in the white shirt is my wife Janet. The breakfast and the lunch couldn't go on without her, and all the decorations. And so, when about a year and a half ago, when Jed, we were down at Founders, and Jed said, "Hey, we're hosting the summer meeting in Peoria County this year," because he goes, "It's been about 25 years since anybody's been up to Central Illinois," and he goes, "You know, we should be able to draw a pretty good crowd being in the middle of the state." And so I said, "Well, it's funny because I said, my niece just got married in our barn, and we're now reinventing it to host weddings and other events." He goes, "Well, that's fine." And he said, "We'll have it there." and then so I never made a decision without contacting Jed and Paul first, because I was like, well, this isn't my deal, this is Jed and Paul's deal. So I appreciate Jed always being available when I have a question or something. Try to keep lemonade and tea filled up. Soda's over here. I'll have to probably run down and get more ice, as hot as it is today. But you're welcome to just walk the grounds. If you have any questions, ask. I'll be glad to answer them as best I can. But like I said, we'll open up the big door, get a little more breeze in here and so forth. So, and we'll have lunch in about 25 minutes. All right?
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right.